Now, to understand the place of Rabban Gamliel of Yavne in history, we need to back up just a drop. Before the destruction of Jerusalem, there was another very great man, and that great man's name was Yochanan ben Zachai. Yochanan ben Zachai was actually a student of Hillel the Elder. He was supposed to be the smallest student, but it turns out he's the most famous or well-known student of Hillel. Yochanan ben Zachai was the one who, during the siege, you may remember, he decided that he wanted to make peace with the Romans, and he was carried out of Jerusalem in a coffin in order to escape. And Yochanan ben Zachai asked Vespasian, who was the general of the army, for 3 favors. And one of them was to save Yavne and its wise men, to allow Yavne to exist and flourish. The second request that he made of Vespasian was that he save the family of Rabban Gamliel, because Yochanan ben Zachai, even though he technically was not, or probably not, from the line of King David, although he was a very great man, he knew that it would be really important for the Jewish people to have a family among them who were from the line of King David and who could rule and who can guide, even though they were not the political power, even though Rome was the political power. But he asked Vespasian, please save the family of Rabban Gamliel. And of course he made a third request, a third wish, but the most important thing now is that Yochanan ben Zachai escaped Jerusalem, got out of the city, and he established Yavne. But as soon as Yavne was established, and as soon as Rabban Gamliel grew up to an age where Rabban Gamliel was able to become Nasi, it seems that Yochanan ben Zachai actually said to Rabban Gamliel, you now can take charge of Yavne. I took charge until now, but the real royalty belongs to you. The rulership belongs to you. I would like you and your family to be in charge of Yavne. And so Rabban Gamliel did take charge of Yavne. There were some difficult times because Rabban Gamliel was a tough personality, but he did take charge, at least for a while. You may know that Rabban Gamliel's brother-in-law was Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, one of the greatest men of the generation, one of the greatest Torah scholars. And unfortunately, Eliezer ben Hyrcanus was also a very tough personality. And he was stubborn when he thought something was right, and Rabban Gamliel was also pretty stubborn and forceful when he thought something was right. And so even though Yavne was the beginning of the Jewish people's new Torah community, nevertheless, there were some very difficult arguments that happened at that time. And one of them was, or many of them, had to do with Rabban Gamliel and his tough personality. Some say that although Rabban Gamliel was difficult, he also had a soft side, because there was a woman in his neighborhood who would cry because her son died, and Rabban Gamliel could not stop crying with her when she would cry. When he heard her cry, she would cry. So of course it seems he was a soft man too. And also Rabban Gamliel owned property. And when his tenants needed seed, and they couldn't even afford the seed to plant on the property, Rabban Gamliel would actually lend them the seed, or give them seed. I think it was lend them seed, so that they could plant the property and then they can pay him back later. So Rabban Gamliel did have a soft side, but he was a tough cookie. And one day there was an argument between Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, his brother-in-law, and the rabbis. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus seemed to lean towards the house of Shammai, towards an opposing opinion. And Rabban Gamliel and the other rabbis disagreed with Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabban Gamliel was so strong and so forceful that he decided that he must excommunicate his brother-in-law, his own brother-in-law. And so that's what he did. And for all the years until Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus died, Rabbi Eliezer had to remain in a room by himself. It could be that people either were not allowed to visit him or couldn't come close to him. And come close meaning within a certain amount of feet of him. And you can imagine that that broke his heart. And as a matter of fact, Eliezer ben Hyrcanus was married, as you can imagine, to Rabban Gamliel's sister. And Rabban Gamliel's sister was so concerned about her brother's health that she would make sure that Eliezer did not bow down in prayer, because she believed that if Eliezer, her husband, would bow down in prayer, then Rabban Gamliel, her brother-in-law, Rabban Gamliel, her brother, would die. And one day and every day she would make sure to catch Rabbi Eliezer and make sure that her husband, Eliezer, would not bow in prayer. And one day she didn't catch him in time. And when she found him bowing, she said, "Get up, because you have just killed my brother." And Eliezer turned to her and said, "How do you know that your brother is dead?" And she said, "Because we have a tradition in our family that even though there may be other gates of prayer that are closed, but the gate of a wounded heart, a suffering heart, is never closed. And since you, Eliezer, have been in such pain because you've been excommunicated, Hashem will definitely listen to your prayers." And that was the case. Rabban Gamliel had indeed died. And so the saga of Rabban Gamliel moves on. Rabban Gamliel had many conflicts with other rabbis and other sages. As a matter of fact, before he died, obviously, backing up a couple years, he had another very important conflict. He had insulted a rabbi in public, and because of that, Rabban Gamliel, the prince, the Nasi, was actually deposed for a short period of time. People said, "This is no way to treat other sages. You cannot do this. We will not stand for it." And Rabban Gamliel was asked to leave. And they say, to the credit of Rabban Gamliel, that even though he was deposed, and you'd think he was publicly humiliated, but Rabban Gamliel still, during that time, would come to the Beit Midrash and study with everyone, just like an equal to the others.